ready. So, yeah, let me turn that camera on. Oh, I should have checked that first. Wait, there you go. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Ooh, it's a little low. Okay, good. Yes. Hi, everyone. So this is the follow up from not last week, 2 weeks ago. So I know many of you were there. If you weren't, and what we're going to be talking about today is more creative coding. So if you missed the class 2 weeks ago, we got through some of the very basics. We took it extremely slow and with the goal to not scare everyone, which seems to work more or less since you're here. But yeah, in this we're going to go a little deeper. Don't be scared by the word advanced. I think next time we do this, I'll ask to take it away. It's just part 2. It's not exactly advanced. The journey to learn coding and to be a creative coder, a generative artist, no matter what you want to do with code, it takes many years, and it's never over. You're never finished learning. But yeah. So this is just like step 2 of the journey, and I want to talk a little bit more also about how to get more practically about what you can do with code in the space of generative art, and in particular in the space of NFTs, and in particular in the platforms that exist on Tezos, because that's what I'm most familiar with. A lot of those concepts will transfer to other platform. I historically stayed away from Ethereum for environmental reasons, which are moot now that Ethereum moved to proof of stake. So yeah, I haven't tried things like art blocks or whatever other platforms do generative art on Ethereum, which I don't know about. But you can assume that many of those concepts will transfer with some things that are, when I'm talking about things that are more specific to platforms like FX Hash or specific code templates for Teia. This is going to be specific to those platforms, but the more general concepts of generative art and coding in general, those will apply anywhere, no matter which platform, no matter which blockchain, no matter whether you're making NFTs or a website for yourself or whatever it is that you do with code. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask if anybody has any thoughts or questions that arose since the last class that was 2 weeks ago. So maybe you tried things, you got stuck, you weren't scared at first, but now you are. I don't know. Just does anybody have any questions or things that they want to clear up before we start? Or that somebody seems to have trouble with their connection. You can also ask your questions in the chat, by the way.
Just so you know, a couple of our residents said that they will not be able to join via the audio, so they will be dropping their questions in the chat, as we just said. And can I say you have a lovely glass there? Mug.
Yes, that was a gift. It's my favorite mug.
It's extremely cute.
I love it. So yeah, I see Reverse Butcher is typing. Okay, well, I'll field the questions as they come. We can start then. We'll be quiet on the mic, but asking question on chat. Yeah, feel free. Feel free to do that. Is there any way I can mute the people just dropping in and out, struggling with their connection? Because
Yes,
that's
you can actually do that if you go to
just a
your
notification.
notifications and just switch them off for the time being.
Yes. Okay. For the notification for the server, you mean, right?
Yes, let me check.
Nothing. Okay. I set it to nothing, and we'll see if it works. Cool. I think it worked. Not sure. Anyway, yeah, cool. All right. So I'm going to start with a few examples of interactive NFTs. Those are from the early days of Hiketnung. But yeah, that's what's cool about them. There's now too many generative NFTs to count. But let's take a trip back memory lane to the early days, the prehistorical days of spring 2021, and I will share my screen so we can do that in style. All right, so there we are. Yes, so I collected a few things. I hope you can see my screen. No, I still hear bidoom bidoom. So that didn't work, but that's okay. Hey, Victor, welcome. So yeah. Anyway, I'll just deal with the bleep bloop bidim boom. Or maybe I just mute everything, and if you want to speak, you just you tell me that you want to speak or that you're speaking, because I might not hear you. All right, so it gets getting distracting. All right, actually, I already opened all of these. So yeah, generative art, code-based art. We talked about it a little bit last time. Artists have been making art with code since the early days of computers. I don't have time here to make like a full history of generative art, but once again, you can ask Echo 33, Echo 33 here, who's a specialist making wonderful threads about the history of generative art and various artists. So they will be very competent to answer those questions or inform you about the history. But yeah, people had been sort of waiting for a place or a way to commercialize. I'm making big generalizations here, but there hadn't been a really good way to collect and sell art made with code until very recently. People were making prints, but that's not the original thing. And if you were doing interactive art or art that that lives, that moves, that was kind of complicated to sell it. You could make installation art, but then this conservation of this kind of work is also kind of tricky. Not that NFTs entirely solve the problem of preserving this work for the future. If you have questions about that, we can get into this, but it's a bit of a rabbit hole. But yeah, there wasn't really a way for generative artists, for code-based artists, to commercialize their work and to have it collected. And NFTs really made a big difference there. And this happened in particular when the platform Hiketnung was started. I don't know if you got to hear from Michael maybe during this residency. He's like sort of de facto historian of Hiketnung. But yeah, on 1st of March 2021, Hiketnung, this NFT platform from Brazil, opened, and very soon, it enabled publishing not only JPEGs, but also all sorts of different formats, including something called SVG, which is a file format that is normally not really known for being interactive, at least not by most people, certainly not by me. I didn't know that it had any kind of interactive features, but it's like something you can make with vector graphic editors like Illustrator. If you're a designer, maybe you played with Illustrator, maybe you know about SVGs. It's those vector graphics. They're different from pixel-based graphics because they basically can scale at any. They can get big or small, and they never lose resolution, that they never get pixelated. So that's the advantage of SVGs or vector graphics in general. But by opening the possibility to make SVGs as NFTs, inadvertently, the creators of Hiketnung made it possible to publish interactive SVGs, because SVGs, turns out, can embed JavaScript and HTML and the whole thing that serves to make websites. So Macchio here, Lionel Radisson, it's an artist from France and been active as a generative artist, a creative coder for many years, published this thing, which is interactive, not by much, but it is. You can click on it and it poses. You can click on it and it starts again. This doesn't look like much, but when you think you're on a website that doesn't support interactive anything, and suddenly you have something interactive published on it, that was kind of mind-blowing. I have to say, like, a lot of us, like generative artists, looked at this, and that's why it was called the magician, by the way, because it was not supposed to be possible to make anything interactive. So everybody was just wondering, well, how did you do this? How did you do this trick? Unfortunately, unlike a real magician who never reveals their tricks, Macchio was very generous with explaining how it was done, which is that SVGs can embed interactive code in the form of JavaScript. I'm simplifying the story a little bit. He had to talk to some of the developers of Hiketnung to make this actually work. It didn't exactly work when he published it, and actually he had to publish a revised version because the first one got messed up. So this is the real first one. This is the revised version, which is actually which actually scales properly and is responsive. But yeah, the magician, first interactive NFT on Tezos, maybe ever. I don't know. I don't really have an example of an earlier one that would be interactive. But what I can say is that, you're supposed to see the work. Yeah, you're supposed to see. Oh, dang it. Yes. So let me. Oh, I didn't share properly. I shared application. Oh no. Yeah, this would work. All right, sorry for that. I didn't show many things. I just showed this, and thanks Jonas for letting me know. So yeah, this is the first one. This is the fixed version, and it works beautifully, responsive, changes size, fits your screen. Look at this. Can we pause for a second to appreciate this? It's quite a beautiful piece of work, very minimal, and it looks beautiful in full screen. So yeah, the magician. That is what it is. And actually, if I went into my console and went to see what it's made of, you can actually look at that. Let me see. Where's the right click? No, that's not it. That's can I actually see it? There's too many. I have too many plugins installed that has nothing to do with. Oh yeah, there you go. No, I know those are other FCGs. Boy. Okay, I shouldn't improvise. This is a bad idea. Why did I decide to do this? No fonts. That's not it at all. Asset, objects, media, assets. No. Okay, never mind. I thought I could look at the SVG itself in the tabs. In the tabs. Up there? No. If this is Chrome. Oh, wait. No. Yeah, no. No, I don't know. I don't know where it is. But anyway, you'll just have to take my next to performance. Memory, performance, memory, application, security, resources. It should be somewhere there. Application. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. No. I mean, maybe, but I've never done it this way, so I wouldn't know what to look at. Yeah, to look for, but it does. It's okay. You'll just have to take my word for it that it is an SVG that actually contains interactive code that makes it possible to generate those shapes and play and pose when you click. So yeah, what I wanted to get to is that this may not seem like much now, looking back, but this really prompted a revolution. This seeing that it was possible to publish our interactive work and put it on an NFT platform. And oh, bye, Ellaby. Hope you get better soon. Yes, you'll watch the recording. Great. So anyway, yeah. So it really opened the possibility for artists to make this interactive work and publish it at the time on Hicketnook. Now I'm looking at it on Object because they have good caching, but you can also see it on Teia. And yeah, basically we all realized that we could publish this work, our work that we made with P5.js or just JavaScript or even shaders on the web. You don't need to understand all of these, but like all of these generative artists who were making work for the internet or not, actually also people using desktop software like processing, realized that they could publish their work on Hicketnook, and that was huge. So lots of us flooded to Hicketnook. People like Leander Herzog here. This is one of this is a piece I really like from him. So yeah, it takes a little while, and it fills it fills the screen with different patterns. And this is something also I wanted to showcase, because there's a difference. You might be thinking, if you see the one that we saw before, like what's different between that and a video that you can play and pause, because it's just shapes changing. You click and it stops, you click and it starts again. Okay, the patterns are random, but I don't know that, so it might as well be a video looping, like a very long video. It wouldn't be a huge difference, right? But this is different. And maybe you can tell me why this is different. Why do you think this is different? You've seen it in front of your eyes, but why can you not do the same with a video? File size, archival, vector graphics. It's not exactly vector graphics. I don't think so, at least. Yeah, I mean, file size and archival are very good points. Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was looking for a specific answer, but all answers are good. But, but yeah, responsivity, to me at least, as an artist, is something that I'm really sensitive to. Is the so if you haven't done web design, maybe you don't know what responsive means, but essentially what it means is that, as you can see, it fits neatly in this square. But if I open it in full screen, it fits now a rectangle. And that means you can make art that will display really well, no matter what the context is, no matter if it's on a display now, or if it's like a 16:9 display, 4:3. Well, who has those these days? But whatever. It was an ultra wide display. This is one of the things that you can do with code-based art. And then, of course, yeah, you have a lot of other other possibilities, like the fact that you could make a pattern that never really repeats and that evolves over time. You click is randomly different. That's also a possibility. In this case, if you click, it changes the color, like it switches the background and the foreground colors. It is actually quite. I should probably not show this too long, because I'm going to break your eyes. It is a bit hard to look at for a while, but that's part of why I like it. Here is so yeah. Let's look at something else. Here's a piece that I made, also responsive, though the pattern just like it's bigger. you can see more of it, but it doesn't essentially change. It's called Forest, and what's different with Forest, and that's something that you could do on Hicketnook, I think from the very beginning, is you get the ability to look at who is looking at the work. Okay, I didn't explain this very well, so let me rephrase this. This code, the code that makes this piece, can check who the user is, who's logged in, who is actually checking this piece at the moment, who's viewing this piece in the browser. So if I'm logged in or synced with my wallet ID, this code can grab this wallet ID and use it to display something different. And it can be something differently unique for each person who's looking. In this case, I don't know if I'm synced. Yes, I am. So this is the version that I get being synced. But if I open it in an incognito window where I'm not synced, it should look different. So let's see that. Yeah, see, it looks different. So yeah, I am not synced, and this is how it looks. Actually, it's different from what it used to be. I don't know what changed. but yeah, there you go. That color palette didn't used to be the default. I'm curious. So yeah, and I can show you how it works if we look at the code. And this time, I think I should be able to find it because I wrote it. So yes. Oh wait, I thought it was very hot, very cold, but I'm actually too hot now. Is this? All right. So if I look at this, where is it? iframe. Yeah, there we are. So the way these things are displayed is through an iframe. An iframe is like, this is not obvious in full screen mode, but let me get back to this. So an iframe here, I'm looking at the elements of the page, you can see that, this is like a window inside of this web page. It's literally like, well, I don't know if literally is the right term, but it really is technically like a window that displays another website inside of a website, right? It's like inceptioning that website in there. So and one of the things that that an iframe can do is to pass parameters, to pass information to the website that is inside of it. So we open this little window that displays the NFT, the interactive NFT, but also we do something else. And here I can see that that's the link that goes to my NFT. Actually, I could even open it this way in another window. See, it works. And here in this link, there's not just a link to the object assets. Actually, not on IPFS, but I guess that's the cache of object itself. And here I can see in this second part of the link. Haha, funny. They added this danger ignored. It's probably for their advanced mode. But here I can see that I have object equal, and that's the number of that specific token on the object is the token format of Higetnunk that was sort of co-opted by object.com. So it has this number 67933. So that's the unique token number of my object. Then creator, and that's my wallet ID. You could check that TZ1HFU blah blah blah. That's me. And then viewer, and well, that's also me because I'm me. But if you were looking at it and say, I'm going to type, let's say I'm someone else. So I'm going to type some random numbers there. So now I'm someone else. And so I'm getting a different color, right? Someone else again. Oops. No, I messed it up. So I don't know what I typed, but it wasn't a letter or a number. Then I get a different color again. Okay. Any questions about this? So this is something that is specific to Higetnunk, then Theia, then Object as well. That is those object variables. What kind of algorithm creates the moving patterns? It's not a specific algorithm, I would say. Is actually this piece in particular also added. I also added this feature where you can view the code, so I can easily answer your question. This is also like this is not built into Object or Hikednunk or any other NFTs to my knowledge, but I made this custom thing because I wanted the code to be part of the art. So it displays it. But yeah, it's essentially it's a grid of squares, but because they overlap in certain ways, then it creates creates a pattern that doesn't look like just a grid of squares. But yeah, cell coordinates. I don't even remember. That was a long time ago now. So I don't know if I change the order or what I do that makes them change. Yeah, I think they just change size. Yeah, they have a number of. I think it's all these squares. They can be specific sizes by increments of steps, and so they increase and reduce their size. Yeah, that's what's going on. And so sometimes you see some of them, sometimes you don't, and they're all overlapping, so they don't look like squares, but they're all squares. Sure, no problem. So yeah, that's so that those possibilities, and I probably won't get too much into this advanced stuff, but that's what some people call. I've come to kind of like that terminology, specifically dynamic NFTs. And they are NFTs that can change based on certain parameters that come from the outside. So that could be the passage of time. That could be things happening on the blockchain, like if the piece itself gets sold, then it might change. If it, I have a piece that I made that destroys itself the more it gets sold. I don't know if I have it in there. It was made after I made those notes. But so you can do some pretty advanced stuff with that. It does require a little bit of understanding of coding, more than a little bit, but yeah. To me, this is a really, really interesting aspect of making interactive NFTs. A little bit, yeah. Let's see, Hikednunk. Yeah, so this is the one, Adam. And this one, it looks slightly different depending on whether you own it or not. So the letters get crossed here. It's a very small detail, but I own one edition, so I have those 4 crosses at the top, and it gets the text of it gets erased the more people collect editions of it. And there's a whole concept behind it. It's based on the chapter of Adam Smith's book, The Wealth of Nation, where he talks about the invisible hand of the market. And so it's a whole commentary on the financialization of art and the economics of NFTs and how it impacts the content of the art itself. But besides that, on the technical level, it's checking how many editions of that piece have been sold. If I look at the console, it should be saying it. I own one edition of this object, and this object has collected this amount of TES, and so that's why this many lines or these many characters of the text have been erased. So yeah, dynamic NFTs. That's pretty cool. That's pretty advanced. So yeah, if we're talking about advanced, I'm not going to show you exactly how to do that stuff, though I have some templates that can help with that. So this piece makes calls to the blockchain. Yes and no. It's using an API called Higdex that was made by Marching Square, who's the developer. No, Higdex.com, who's the main developer of Object.com, actually, and it was an indexer of Hikednunk that was made for people making third-party tools. Yeah, sure, I can share the templates. I will share the templates at the end. Just remind me. And yeah, so Higdex lets you look up data from the Hikednunk Yeah, so like 67933, for example, that was the one from before. Yeah, so here I can look at the history of that piece. And yeah, and so I'm using Higdex from inside of the NFT. One thing I should mention, this only works on Teia at the moment. The reason it works on object.com is because Marching Square whitelisted some of the earlier pieces that were doing that, and it's blocked from new pieces because of security reasons, which, as much as I would love to say there's there's a way out of it, I talked to Marching Square many times, and I became convinced that they're probably, like, for the level of security that they're looking for, they're probably right to prevent this from being done in new pieces. It's a shame. But you can do it on Teia still. It just won't appear on object, so you should have a fallback. What you can still do is use you still have those variable like the viewer, so who is viewing it, and the object number, though the object number is a little bit useless if you can't use it to query data by itself, but it's there. So yeah, that's that. I know that Versum has showed interest. I was talking to Andre Venancio, one of the creators of Versum and Vector, and they seem to have interest in implementing dynamic NFTs on Versum, which is another platform on Tezos. But I don't have any news on that side, so yeah, we'll have to see if that happens. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I really think that dynamic NFTs to me is like the ultimate overlap between generative art and blockchain, and it's really something unique that can only be done in this context. And there's something really interesting as an artist working with technology to me is it's not about what the technology can do, but it's like what kind of art can you make with this technology that could not be made with any other technology? And this is when, in my opinion, it becomes a medium. And there's still very little that has been explored in this medium of dynamic NFTs. People do stuff. I've seen even on Ethereum stuff being done. Like there's this piece that changed based on the hash rate, I think, or something. So it's there, and some artists do stuff with it. It hasn't been fully explored yet, and that's where I see a lot of great potential. So I'm using this platform to encourage you, if you feel excited about this as I am, go and try it out and explore and experiment. I think if you're even more advanced, you can, build your own smart contracts and make even more advanced things with custom smart contracts. I've never gone that way. It's a little too advanced for me. Okay, let's get back to something a bit more simple and playful. Simple, I don't know, but more playful. That's a piece by Gallo that is, let's say, more obviously interactive than the ones that we've seen before. And this is also something you can do. So this one's also responsive, and it's using something called fluid simulation to make these pixels flow around. And I think it's a beautiful piece. There's a bunch of those from this era, from Gallo, who's now moved on to different styles, but I still love those. All right. I'm not sure if this one is going to work, actually. Every time I want to demo, this one doesn't work because my microphone is being used already. But yeah, you can also use inputs, camera, microphone. Those are available as well. I just can't show it because my microphone is going to you. And so yeah, this is done with code initially, and then sewn into Fabric and turned into frame by frame animations. Then sewn into several and separate pieces of felt. I think at some point they posted some behind the scenes, but that was a long time ago, so I don't know if I can find this again. Oh yeah, there you go. For example, yeah. See, so separate frames of animation. I feel like that must be the back of the frame because you can see those. I don't know how they're called. I've never sewn, but yeah, it's probably the back. Yeah,
That's just amazing.
that's work. Yep.
It's hours. Me, I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I need to put my volume back up. Yes, now I should be able to hear you.
That I'm just, my mind is blown, and it's amazing because I kept on thinking, how do they do it? How to do the frame by frame, and like hours, and then I stop, I go on my day, and then like a week, 2 weeks later, I go back to it. I'm like, how? And now you just gave away the secret, and I'm just, I don't know how I'm able to listen to you the rest of the I'm in shock. I'm so happy. I'm like super ecstatic right now.
Oh, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. Cool. I was afraid maybe you would say like, oh, the magic is gone, but sometimes when the trick is really good, even knowing the trick is it makes it even better. So yeah, it's an incredible amount of work. It's it's just a fantastic artist, and yeah, I love the work and I love the process as well. So yeah, that was Hugh Messi. This one, let me see. Yeah, I have a couple more examples, and then we can get into more practical things, and I'll talk about the templates and everything. Okay, this one's for the nerds. So so if it gets too complicated, don't worry. I'm also not sure if it's gonna work because I don't know if they whitelisted it. Maybe this one I actually have to look on Taya, but yeah, I'm afraid I have to, and I don't know if it's gonna load. But let's see. I can look at it on Twitter if Yazid posted it. So this is from Yazid, who got then quite a lot of success on FX Hash. But this piece, is it loading at all? Doesn't look like it. So yeah, this is how the piece looks. So very minimal, quite beautiful, with an effect that is called moiré, which is when there's like interaction between different levels of patterns, and they start creating these meta patterns. So yeah, very very beautiful piece, just in and of itself. But there's more to it, and this is where it gets extremely nerdy. So brace yourselves, it's gonna be fine. Once you can just yeah, take a deep breath. So here's what happens. This is a description of the piece. The piece is called the meta instructions. So there's a hint in there already of what's going on. So the meta instructions, number 7, there was a series. It is a series. And it's explained here. This object takes its own description metadata and executes it as code to render its output. So the code is here in the description. It gets evaluated by the piece. What the piece does, so it has more code than just this. It has code that queries the blockchain actually without the HIGDEX API. It was done before the HIGDEX API existed, so it's using, I think was it like Baking Bad API or some other taco related API that queries the Tezos blockchain directly. Finds itself. And if I remember right, without the benefit of knowing the number of the object, so there was also some dark magic going on in there to figure out which object it is, because you don't know the number. Maybe I didn't make that clear before, but when you mint an object, you don't know which number it's going to get, right? It's going to get whatever number is next. And because everybody's minting at the same time, maybe at the time you could still guess, because not as many people were minting at the same time, but I think it was still doing some trickery, like guessing roughly the range and then checking other things until it found itself. So it finds itself and then looks for the description in the metadata and evaluates this as code, as JavaScript code. So if you know a bit about coding yourself, and you understand this, maybe you get why I put it here, because it's quite impressive as a feat. It's really just, it's almost showing off at this point, but it's not. It was really because we were all like really excited to experiment and see what was possible. And this is one of the most out there kind of nerdiest pieces of art there is on the Tezos blockchain. Yeah. That is meta instructions. All right, good. Moving on. Don't worry, we passed the point of high nerdiness. I'm going to show you one last piece, which is actually two pieces. And let's see if I can. Yeah. So this is. Oh, I can't show it like that. Okay. I can show it maybe directly on IPFS. See if we can do that. Yes, it's loading. Okay. So this is called Recursive Twins by Andreas Rau, who also got a lot of success on FXhash later. And what it's doing is it's a little bit like the previous one in the sense that it is looking up data on the blockchain. But what it's doing is it's called Recursive Twins because it's two different pieces. And remember when I talked about iframes before? So it's a window inside of a website that displays another website. Well, this is an artwork that is an iframe that displays the other artwork. And this artwork here on the right is an iframe that opens this other artwork. Except because they're doing that, both of them, it recursively continues to open the other one and the other one, and they each open each other. And it keeps going until actually looks like the browser crashes, because I had it open before and it had crashed. But yeah, it's actually still doing it. Nerd intensifies. Yeah. I mean, it's somewhat less technical than the previous one, but it's a lot of fun. I think and also conceptually, it's quite interesting as an experiment. So yeah, they're each loading each other, and then you have this Drost effect where it just keeps going in the distance. Actually, I feel like it used to be. Oh, there you go. I was too zoomed in. Oh yeah, it looks better like that. That's how it's supposed to look. There you go. Yeah, much better. Oh, I messed it up. Yeah, now it looks great. Okay. Infinity mirrors, yeah. So yeah, that's the proper way to look at it. All right. So those were some examples. All right. Do we have questions right now about any of this that we have seen so far? I'm gonna go back to my notes. See some questions coming up in the chat. You can also, if you have a microphone and you're able to, you can also speak. That is fine. I'm gonna pour myself some tea. You want to get homework? Yes. Maybe later you can mention some artist that brings creative coding into the physical art practice. Yes. Physical. You mean like interactive installations, for example? Or like making objects out of creative coding? I can mention someone. Somebody I had on my stream once. Let me see. Oh, yes. So I have had a number of guests on my live stream on Twitch, and one of them was Libs Elliott, and they're doing pieces that start with a physical process, but then bridge coding into it. Well, this is more like coding first and then physical. So what Libs is doing is she's making patterns with processing, which is a creative coding environment, and then turns them into quilts, which are like beautiful pieces of art. I wish I could afford one, but I think it takes so much time. I don't even know how expensive those are. But yeah, so yeah, this is some of the code, and yeah, and here's some of the output. Yeah, that's an example of code with a physical element. If you want to see that, here's the link. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. There's tons more. If you're interested in learning more about that specifically, let me see. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I have a couple of books. So yeah, so this is a classic, A Touch of Code, and it talks a lot about installation art. So you have, I'm not even sure which page that property has. Yeah, artists working with technology and making in live installations. It's not the newest, but it has a lot of. It's like a time capsule of this like 2000s installation scene, and yeah, it's still a great book. And this one, if you're a little more into history, and you want a big book for your coffee table, a history about a movement, a little known story about a movement story. Yeah, a little known story about a movement, a magazine, and the computer's arrival in art, which is about a history of new tendencies. It was an art movement from, I believe, Zagreb, and yeah, it contains a lot of really cool examples of art made with technology that were very often turned into installations. Recommendations about more recent work. I don't know actually about books about installation art that were in the recent years, because I've been a little away from installation art. So actually, no. This is the book I had because back in the day I was very into it. I guess it was also a time when it was kind of new and fresh, and everybody was excited about it. I mean, I'm saying new and fresh just after talking about new tendencies that was decades before, but yeah, it was sort of getting into the zeitgeist. I don't know if people are as excited about digital installations today as they were 10 years ago, but maybe they are. I hope they are, actually, because it's really cool. And I think that there are some interesting things that NFTs could learn from that era. Now that we're going back into the world, or we have been going back into the world for a while, that all this digital stuff can go back and have a physical presence, and create also cool live minting experiences or things like that that can learn a lot from these past work. Like we're not really inventing anything. It's been out there for a while. Yeah, absolutely, bridging digital tools with the physical world. Yeah. But yeah, like if we start getting into examples of artists making cool installation pieces, we'll be here all night. So yeah, but I'm happy to share some things if you want later. If you want to ask questions, I will happily share. All right. So, okay, templates. No, not that. Yeah. So. Oh no, not here. Just a second. I'm gonna open my interactive template so we can have a look at it together. Can I repeat the name again? Oh, the name of the books, you mean? Oh, you got the names. Okay, cool. No worries. So yeah, templates. Open collections. Hiketnung templates. Yeah, that's the one. That is the one indeed, and the other one is touch of code. A touch of code. Okay. Yes. So yeah, those are the templates I was talking about before. Actually, I'm going to share the link. They should still work on Teia. I mean, they still work on Teia, but some of the aspects I was talking about, especially the Hiktex API template, will only work on Teia and not on object.com. Just to remind you. So yes. See. Right. So this one is a good one to show you how to get the information from those variables that we were talking about, the built-in variables. So I'm going to skip some of those. Don't worry, you don't really need right now to understand all of that, but I just want to talk about some specific aspects of it. Essentially, that's the other side of that link that we looked at before, where you had the viewer wallet ID and the creator wallet ID and the object number. So the way that we get this data from inside of the NFT itself is like so. I want to put more. Yeah, it's going to be easier to read this way. Okay. So here we are getting this from it's what's called the URL. What does URL means again? Like your universal resource something label? I don't know. Link. This is a URL. This is the address that you have in the address bar. And search parameters are these things that we saw that were behind the question mark, and then you have like viewer equals and the wallet ID. This is a search parameter because it used to be used. I mean, it was made to be used for searching a website, but now we use it to pass information to a website for all sorts of things, and not only searching. But that's why it's called a search param, search params, URL search params, so search parameters. And here we query the window object. That's sort of the top level object in JavaScript. We ask for location and search. and then we say get creator, and that's how we get the variable. If you don't understand fully this, it's okay. Just know that that's sort of the magic formula that you need to invoke to get that variable out of the URL. And so, and if you're doing something for Hikitten, well, for Teia, you can even just copy paste those and then use creator, viewer, and object constants that I'm declaring here, and it will just work out of the box. But it's good to still understand a little bit what's going on in case you wanted, I don't know, to get another search parameter out of there. You would need to do the same thing, give it a different constant's name. A constant is just a variable that doesn't vary, so that's why it can't be called a variable. You can't change the value of a constant once you've declared it or instantiated it rather. So yeah, and here we're getting object, we're getting viewer, we're getting creator. So this is the wallet ID. This is the wallet ID of the viewer. Well, wallet ID of the creator, wallet ID of the viewer, and the number of the object. So the object we were looking at before, 67933, that was, it knew that because it could get it from the URL through this invocation there. It's not called an invocation. I'm just saying it as a joke, but with this line of code here. All right. Does that make sense? We went through the deep end now already, so I hope you're not scared. Jonas is writing. Stopped writing. Oh, makes sense. Okay, good. Yeah, so this is where we're getting those variable, and here and here you can see something actually that's interesting. Here I'm using console.log. That's how I can. It's called print, but it's not literally printing on paper. It used to be. That's why it's called print. But we're actually printing to the computer itself in something called the console, which here appears. So here in the P5 editor, if you remember from 2 weeks ago, we were using this as well. In the P5 editor, I'm in dark mode, by the way, but I think last time I was in light mode, just switching things up. But it's the same tool. And here I'm logging or printing to the console. Dark mode is best mode. A strong political statement in the chat right now. But yeah, so NFT created by creator. And here you see that I don't get a wallet ID. I get something called null. And that means that that creator here, this constant, didn't get anything from here. Actually, I think I did something in more recent versions of that template. You could have a test value in here. If I wanted, I could say that I either get this, or if it's null, and that's what this means. If it's null, then I'll have a dummy value, which is this one. Let's see if it works. Yeah, see, so now I have a dummy value here. So I could do the same here with the viewer as well. And this means that it will be able to work. It will work also locally when you run it or inside of the editor. Those values are not passed in the URL here. See, you don't see them here. And this is also an iframe, but it's an iframe that doesn't pass these values. So I can have dummy values here. I only work in black and sometimes very, very dark gray. Yeah, I understood that reference. All right, and here we could also do the same. So either the value we get from the URL, or, and I put this in quotes because it's a string, and a string is a string is kind of short for a string of characters. So it can be a sentence or a very long word or a very short word. The Lego movie, or maybe the Lego movie 2. Experts will tell us. So here I could say like, yeah, this is my dummy value for the object number. And so now you see I have it here. Yeah. So that's it. That's our magic code to get those variables for Teja, Hikenung, object. So this works on object as well. What doesn't work, and we can go to our. I'm gonna save the changes. What doesn't work is this. I mean, it works here because we're not an object. Yeah, this is a template that works on Teja. That actually seemingly really struggles, but that checks if you own the NFT itself. So yeah, it has a bit of more like a more complex way to do the dummy thing that we saw before, but essentially it's the same idea. I think it checks. Does it check where you're running it from? I don't remember. Let me just have a look at this again. But essentially, yeah, what's happening is it checks on Higdex what is the number of the object, what is the wallet ID of the viewer. Is the wallet ID of the viewer a wallet that contains the NFT by that object number? If so, that means that the person currently viewing the NFT is also a person who owns the NFT. If it isn't, then it means that the person viewing the NFT currently does not own the NFT. And that means that we can show different visuals to the person who owns it and to the person who doesn't. How cool is that? So here, for example, we have, I used a different piece of mine, not so it's not this one because this one is not on the blockchain, it's just there. So we're actually querying, we're borrowing the data from another NFT to display this one, to make this demo. But if I picked another one, and I will assume that the one was one number below I do not own. Yeah, exactly. So this one, I do not own it. So it tells me, no, you don't own it, and it's gray. Right? Does that make sense? And put the 4 again, and that's it. It says you own this NFT. Right? And if you want to see how this actually works, it's actually really not optimized. I have made better versions of that. And actually, if you start getting into this, you should try to learn about GraphQL queries, which is another rabbit hole. And you can optimize your query, because right now what I do is I get all the data about this object, like everything. Address, name, blah, everything possible about like every token holder. But what you can do, you can say like, is this particular wallet in the list of token holders? And it will tell you yes or no, and not have to return a whole big blob of data to you. So yeah, this is not optimal, but it is what's it's what's happening, and this way you can query whatever after in your code, but you really shouldn't do it that way because it's very wasteful. But yeah, here we have our fetch GraphQL. This is the address of the Higdex API, and we pass it our query, which is here. This query. This is essentially the question we're asking to the API. Hey, can you give me this data? And then it sends it back. And then it will return a JSON file, which is a JavaScript object format as a string. And then you can get all the data that you want from that string. I'm not getting into the details because this would be way too long, and that we wouldn't have enough of the 2 hours to get into this. This will speak to some people. If it doesn't speak to you, then maybe this is something that you will learn, further on in your journey. It's totally fine. I'm trying to keep it at the level where it makes sense. But even if you don't understand the specifics of the code, I don't even understand the specifics of the code right now, because this is some code I wrote quite a long time ago, and so I would have to spend some time to get back into it to really understand all the details, but we don't have time to do that now. So yeah, but if you have specific questions, please feel free to ask. You're doing this right now with the Twitter API. Yeah, so an API is like an interface between you and the data from a platform. Or any kind of data that is stored on another machine somewhere on the internet. And people use APIs all the time. If you want to, make an app that looks for all the pictures on Instagram that are tagged with the hashtag cupcake, then you can query the Instagram API. Actually, I don't know if Instagram has an API that lets you do that, but let's assume. You could ask the Instagram API, hey, can you return me the list of the top 10 most liked pictures of cupcakes? And then it would do that. Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about that example. But yeah, that's essentially what an API is doing. You're making a query, which is like a question, and it gives you a response that is the data that you asked for. Follower check as a whitelist for minting. Interesting. Yeah. And then you would have to check if that follower has a wallet, and that's an interesting problem to solve. Cool. Yeah, and so you can use APIs also to plug different services with each other, check data from one source, and check it against some other platform, and see make some inferences from that. Just as in the case of what Hidden Forces is talking about, checking who follows them, and then checking if they have a wallet. I assume with checking if they have in TZ profiles registered their Twitter account with that, and which is the wallet that is associated with that Twitter account, and then adding that to a list and putting that as a whitelist for minting. Yeah. So this APIs are very powerful. They're extremely useful, and it's probably, I mean, it is something you can learn early, but it's an extra layer on top of learning JavaScript, and certainly on top of learning P5.js, which is really making things a little bit easier. Okay, so any questions? Any questions? I think I'm going to talk about maybe not specifically the responsive template, but we might, because we talked about responsiveness at the beginning, I might show you how to make a responsive sketch in P5.js. I think that's a good skill to have. But I'll see if we have. So object forbids any APIs. You got it. Yes, that is the right. That is the short version of it. On Teia, and so historically on Hikednung and on Teia, there were a number of APIs that were allowed by Andre, and I think it was Vector working for Hikednung as well. I think so. But yeah, they decided to allow, because an iframe. So we talked about iframes, right? So yeah, also not allowed on FX hash. An iframe can restrict what the website inside that iframe, and in this case, it's not exactly a website, but it's an interactive NFT. So what this NFT can and cannot do, you can say, are you allowed to use the microphone or not? Are you allowed to use the camera or not? Are you allowed to call this particular API on this particular domain or not? So this is why the same NFT is allowed to call APIs from the iframe on Teia, but not from the iframe on object. because the iframe on object is more restrictive. That is what's going on. And FX hash, somebody found the hard way that you because they tried it and they used the API, the FX hash API. So that was kind of a workaround. Like you can use the FX hash API technically, but you're not supposed to, and their token got blacklisted after that. So yeah, the token got banned. I still own one. I'm not. The artist was offering refunds, but I didn't want one. I'm keeping it as a statement. I know why they don't allow it, but yeah, I still think it would be nice. So who was that? Oh, I can't remember. I can check my collection if it actually shows it. Actually, that's is yeah, undesirable content. It was M5 Alien. Yeah. And it was showing your name. It was even done quite subtly. You can barely tell that it's doing it. Oh, and it's also not. It looks like it's broken already. So maybe that was the. That's the problem. Like loading external resources. Oh, that's a good point. So here's the reason why it's a bad idea to use an API, even if I've been telling you how cool it is since the beginning. It's a bad idea to use an API from an NFT because you cannot update your code. And if the API changes for whatever reason, they're not supposed to if you're using a specific version, but say the API gets discontinued, doesn't work anymore. The company who maintains the API closes. The person who maintains the API decides they're tired and they don't want to maintain it anymore. Your NFT is broken. And that might be the case here because maybe FX Hash changed their API and that's that. Now it's broken, doesn't work. So yeah, a good reason to not allow it. There are some APIs that you can suppose are going to be more or less stable for a while, but you can never know for sure. So anytime you depend on a third party to maintain something else, well, if they don't, then your NFT is broken, unless you have some kind of fallback, but which I would really recommend. It is just not going to work. So you could have an or in the same way that we saw before with the dummy data. You could say like, get the data from the API, or if the API doesn't reply or it's an error, then fall back to this version that works without the data. It's not going to work for every concept. Like for my thing that checks how many were sold, well, I can just show the version that where none of them are sold, but the concept is kind of it's not as fun. But yeah, that's a possibility. So here in Teja and Hiketnunk, this is the list of APIs that are allowed. So a bunch of APIs that are related to IPFS, a bunch of APIs that are related to Tezos, or various blockchain tools, indexers, and some other extra things like Wikidata, which I never really managed to figure out. It's a little complicated, but you could get like any data from Wikidata. Some weather API. I refuse to connect because it violates the interesting. So that piece, they actually blacklisted it from using the API. Oh, that's funny. It violates the following content security policy directive. Okay. Yeah, they just blocked it. You're not even allowed to see it. Oh well. Yeah. So yeah, these are the APIs that you can access if you publish your token on Teja, but on the object it won't work. So you need a fallback. Yes. What were we talking about before? Oh yeah, I said I wanted to show you how to do a responsive sketch. So yeah, well, you can keep the questions coming, but I'm going to start coding. Okay, so remember this. We're making a canvas. It's 400 pixels by 400 pixels. That's our setup. Setup runs once, sets up the canvas. Draw runs again and again. And again, 60 times per second, typically. Right now, it's just drawing the background as some shade of gray, 60 times per second. So that's not extremely exciting. But we could say we want to have a circle, and we want this circle to be in the middle. So if we say we want a circle at 200 pixel in the horizontal, I'm just redoing something quite similar to what we did 2 weeks ago. So that should be familiar if you were there. And now we have our circle in the middle. Okay, but now say that we want this to be bigger. Make it like this. Oh no, it's not in the middle anymore. So we need to use the dimensions of the window divided by 2, and then it's in the middle, right? Width divided by 2, height divided by 2. Okay, and now if I change the size, oops, don't need the zeros. Now it stays in the middle. All right, remember that? It wasn't exactly what we did last time, but I'm only using concepts that we saw last time. So hopefully it's clear. Okay, but now say that we want to do something like that piece antenna, which managed to make it crash the browser somehow. Right? We want to make a piece that will adapt to the size of the window it's in. How do we do that? How can I find out that, like, how to do that? Actually, try to summon your knowledge from the very beginning of last week of last course, last class. I told you, who's your best friend? Who is your best friend? Not me, but that's very kind of you to say. Who is your best friend? Waiting. I will not move on until I get an attempt at a response. I see. Where can I find information about how to do pretty much anything on P5.js? The reference p5js.org, Google on the console. Yes, all of these are great responses. Absolutely. I could Google it. It's true. I could Google it. P5js responsive. And then I would find stuff. Responsive full screen. So there's an example here that somebody else made. That also works. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. So this is one way. The other way is to go to help, reference, and then I get to the reference. Or like Jonas was saying, I could like go straight to p5js.org and then click reference. Same difference. All good. And then I say, like, if I look for window, I see there's something called window resize. That's a method. Window resize, and here it does exactly what I want, actually. Window resize canvas, window width, window height. So there are variables here that are called window width and window height, and you can look what they are, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory. A system variable that stores the width of the inner window. It maps to window.innerWidth. Okay, so that's like the JavaScript way to do it. So yeah, I can do that. I add another function window resize. And this function is a callback from P5.js. A callback is a function that will get called later when something happened. It's an event handler. It's another way to, in this particular type of callback, I guess, is an event handler, and it's going to get called when the window gets resized. So there's another function called resize canvas. And we saw window width, window height. Okay, I'm going to put a semicolon, even though it's not necessary in JavaScript. But let's be good kids. Okay, run. It's not the size of the window. So what happened? Why is it not the size of the window? I put my function window resize canvas, window width, window height, but it's wrong. Because there is no value. Can you explain what you mean? Fixed values in create canvas? Call it on setup. Yes, that is correct, Jonas and Yuri, you are right. I called it in window resize, and as I mentioned before, it's an event handler. So, or an event listener, I guess. I'm not sure if there's if those are both technical terms or, but in any case, it's waiting for something to happen, and it hasn't happened. The window hasn't been resized. If I do resize the window, boop, now it is there. But we don't want to wait for the user to resize the window for this to not be 600 by 600 pixels. So this is why we also need to do the same thing in the setup. When we call create canvas, we want to create it at the size of the window straight away, not wait until the window gets resized. And now it's good. So stop, run, it's the size of the window. And see, because we said that we want our circle to be at width divided by 2 and height divided by 2, when I change the size of a window, it stays in the middle. This is because width and height are built-in variables of P5 that get updated when we call resize canvas. So they get created when we call create canvas, width and height. If I was trying to print width before I create the canvas, probably wouldn't work. I'm not sure because JavaScript is doing weird things. I'm not even going to try that. But in any case, they get their values when you create canvas, and then they get updated when I call resize canvas. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right. Yes, but the circle size should change too. That's an option. We can decide that we want the circle size to change. And this is opening some interesting questions, actually. Some interesting questions about art and about responsiveness. There are different ways that you can approach this. And people, if you look at the work on FX Hash, for example, which is a place where you have a lot of work that is made with code, different artists approach this different ways. So for some artists, and I'm going to assume this looking at the screenshot, that this is not responsive. Is it? Okay. Oh, there's different formats. Okay, so yeah, this is it. And if I open it full screen, it's also going to take forever to render. But let's see, is it centered? Yeah, it is centered. And it's rendering. So this is not a JPEG. Again, it is generated. If I changed here FX hash, by the way, you remember when how object and Teya are passing viewer, object, and creator variable? Well, FX hash is passing a variable called FX hash, and that's a hash of the transaction that created that piece, that particular mint. Because this is the preview, this is just a random hash. It doesn't correspond to a real transaction, but for all of the others, it is. And if I was to change that value to something else, it would generate a different one. That's how FX hash does it. I may have showed this 2 weeks ago already. I don't know. Okay, maybe I need to change it more than just one letter for to see a significant change. Yeah, there you go. Now it looks different. But yeah, see here, here the canvas stays the same size, but it is centered. And I would always recommend to do this because if you look at it, for example, can I? How does this work? There's a okay. Oh yeah, I can see my collection, for example. So if I look at my collection and I press play here, there's this mode, this sort of kiosk mode, and I've seen people use it in exhibition as well to show their collection. And it looks great or it looks nice at least when it is like that, centered. But some pieces are not centered, and I'm not sure if I have any because I'm pretty particular about this. But yeah, some artists don't look into this and don't center their piece, and then it just appears as a square on the side, and that's a little unfortunate. This is the case even for some really like high profile collections. Not trying to put anybody on blast, but say, I don't know, is Sankan a good student there? I don't remember. Let's see. Yeah. He is. But let's see. I remember that some of the top pieces were not actually doing it. The generative token. No, centered. Good job, Ciphered. Well done. Okay, one last try. No, it was in the top of all time. Yeah. Okay, William. Not happening. Too slow to load. Okay, but anyway, just take my word for it, I guess. So sometimes it appears not centered, not nice. So yeah, but if you decide to resize, so I was talking about responsiveness. If you decide, so yeah, let's say if you decide to keep your work in a fixed aspect ratio, then you don't have to worry too much. I mean, you can think about how it scales, but then you don't have to worry about the composition changing. When you change the aspect ratio of your piece, and you have to consider like, oh, is it the same? It is the same piece, especially in FX hash, because a collector collects a specific piece, a specific iteration of your piece, rather. If they got a green one, you don't want it to become red when it's full screen. It should still be green. And if it has a specific type of composition, or if it has like 3 circles, then should it have more circles when it's in the large format? Probably not, especially if it's one of the parameters of the piece, because FX hash pieces have something called features, right? And those features, I don't know if, so those features that appear here, sometimes it's like number of leaves on that tree. So if you make the tree bigger because it's in full screen and it has a property that says it has 5 leaves, well, it shouldn't have 16 when it gets full screen, right? So those are considerations that impact the aesthetic of the piece, but also how your work is perceived by collectors and how it gets displayed in exhibitions as well. So yeah, let's see. We want the circle to be bigger and smaller. So this is a question, right? Like, should it be bigger and smaller depending on on the size of the window? Maybe it should. Does it depend on like the vertical, horizontal, a combination of the two? That's for us to decide, and it's not entirely obvious. So you can make a variable that's called diameter and say it is a proportion of the shortest of the two variables, width and height, right? So say min of width and height. So that's going to be the smallest of the two. So if it's landscape, it's going to be the height. If it's portrait, it's going to be the width. And then I can say I want this to be a third of the shortest. And then I need to use this parameter, this variable, sorry, as the diameter in the circle function. All right. So yeah, this works. If I wanted to show it properly, let's see, file, save it, share, full screen. Yes, so see, now if I reduce it like this, it gets smaller from the vertical axis. And now if it's in portrait mode, it gets smaller on the horizontal axis, dependent on one or the other, depending on the aspect ratio. Does it make sense? That's getting a little trickier. So would be understandable if some of you needed a, feel free to tell me if it's going too fast or if you don't even know what your question is, but you're lost. Please do tell me. I'm here for you for another 20 minutes. So now is the right time to ask questions. Anyone? Can't believe it's so clear to everybody. Jonas, Yuri, yes. Or if you have ideas of things you want to see, let me know. You're on the road. How to do animation? Yes, on FX Hash. So same as anywhere, really, if you're using P5.js. So if you want to publish your work on FX Hash, there's a fantastic documentation, by the way. It's very good, and you should absolutely read it if you're going to do anything on FX Hash. You want to read it first. Things like reserve lists. I read it the last minute before I actually had to do it. Bad idea. Read it ahead. It's quite hard to understand. But yeah, the guidelines on how to publish and the templates, everything is really well done. So what you can use is how to do this. Don't trust this one. For once, don't go to the coding train. This actually doesn't show you how to do this. It is this tutorial, P5 geometry, that tells you how to make procedural geometry with P5. And this is how you do it performantly, because you could make you can generate a 3D object in P5, but by default you're creating the geometry every frame. So unless you're actually generating just one frame, it's not going to be like you couldn't do this at this frame rate. at all with P5.js by default. So for anything dynamic that uses geometric, like procedural 3D, you want to go and read about this. This is a little bit like this is quite advanced. And 3JS is also quite advanced. Anything that is 3D is typically like requires a little more involved understanding of programming than 2D stuff. But it is exciting, so I absolutely go and learn that if you want to. If you want to learn 3JS, there's something called 3JS Journey. That is a paid tutorial or class, online class, which seems to be what everybody's recommending. I signed up, but I never actually found the time to go through it. But it seems to be really good. So yeah, that's my answer for 3D. So either P5 geometry or 3JS. And there are other options, but yeah, for the sake of simplicity, let's keep it at that. All right. So yeah, our boilerplate FX hash generative simple template. Yeah. All right. So you could start with this. Actually, I think probably the easiest way to do it is to use Open Processing's built-in template, because if I go to Open Processing, so Open Processing is it has a confusing name because it's P5.js mostly now, or only. Only P5.js, not processing. You can't run processing sketches in a browser anymore. But yeah, it has a built-in editor, just like the P5 editor, and it has templates, like pre-made template. P5.js starter, interactive, P5.js with shaders, and an FX hash template. So here you have like a similar template to the boilerplate that we saw before. It has the minified version of P5.js built in. That's another thing, again, because you are not allowed to load any data from the outside. You are not allowed either to use what's called a CDN, a content delivery network, which is the typical way that you tend to load libraries. If I go here in my in the HTML file, which is the structure of the page, we're loading the P5.js library from somewhere else, namely something called Cloudflare, cloudflare.com. So they are hosting on many servers across the world these libraries, and that means they can be loaded pretty fast from wherever you are, and you don't need to add this bulk to your code. But this is not the case for FX hash, because you're not allowed to load anything from a third-party server. So you need to have everything bundled into your code. And so a minified version of a library or any code really is this code with every kind of extraneous elements removed. So here we have everything in one line, no line breaks. All the variable names are reduced to single letters if possible. So yeah, minified and embedded inside or bundled with your code. In the HTML, so again, the structure of the page and where we have a certain number of metadata, we are using, and this is really the only thing you need to create an FX hash piece, is to have this snippet here, which is it's doing a number of things. For development locally or on one of those editors, it creates a fake FX hash, so a fake transaction hash that is random, and so you can see different variations of your piece Oh, so the template doesn't have anything built in. Okay, so I can't show you anything. But oh yeah, no, it does. Okay, it just took a little while to load. So yeah, every time I reload, it's going to give me a variation. It's not going to be obvious here because it's just a bunch of circles. So unless you memorize the position of every circle, so yeah, it's just generating a different one. And here, if I used like fx rand times 255, I think that should change the background, and so we can see that. No, that's for the reset. Setup reset. Oh, when I press space, it resets. Okay, yeah. So let's say that. So yeah, if I was, well, that's not the demonstration of what I was trying to demonstrate, but yeah, technically this is kind of similar to what would happen with the snippet. That generates a different what we use as a seed for the randomness, or what fx hash uses as a seed for their fx rand function. That's another thing. When you want to do anything random on fx hash, you have to use either to use their random function or to seed the P5, and that's what I would recommend typically, to seed the P5 random function with fxrand. So I would say random seed in the setup, random seed equals fxrand. And because fxrand is just between 0 and 1, we need to multiply it by a big number. That can be anything, just to make sure that we actually have seeds that are distant from each other. Otherwise, you won't see the difference. And same with noise functions, which are also random. So fx rand times a bunch of nines, could be anything, just has to be a big number. Oops. Just has to be a big number. So yeah, I would do this. And one last thing that I would I typically like to do to make sure that we don't inadvertently introduce some real random, because that's not allowed on fx hash. You want every time that you run a given mint, a given iteration, that it looks the same. It can have randomness, but that randomness should be the same every time. So having a fixed seed for each hash is how we ensure that randomness is controlled, or randomness is what we call deterministic. So it is determined once and it stays this way the whole time. If this is confusing, please let me know, because it can be, but that is extremely important. And so one last thing that I like to do is to make sure that the built-in math random function in JavaScript is replaced by fxrand, and I think that's how you do this, but I'm not sure anymore. Let me see. I did this. I had this thing on Twitter. Ooh, I can't type anymore. Yeah, in the meantime, if you have any questions or confusions or things that you would like me to explain, just let me know. There was still a question about animation. I'll get to this. We have another 10 minutes. Random, what's that? Nope, that's not it. How is it called? Can't remember. Fix hash. Nope. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. Yeah, math random equals fxrand. So this way, every time you call math random, it actually will be fxrand. And this is this seems extremely weird if you're not used to JavaScript. that you can just replace a built-in function with whatever, but that's something that JavaScript allows. So now from there, if I call math random, it's actually going to be fx rand. Okay, so I mean, this barely qualifies as animation, but I mean technically, it is. It sort of is animation. But what we could do is redraw the background, and it will look a little more like animation. Run. Oh, what did I do? File could not be loaded. What? What have I changed? I haven't changed anything. Did I change something here? Well, maybe this is messed up. Put it in the setup. Random noise is not defined. Oh, noise seed. Okay. It's noise seed, not random noise. Okay, yeah. Well, it's just completely random, but just completely random animation. So yeah, I mean, the question about animation, it's a bit tricky to answer because it depends really what you're trying to do. You can't do any type of animation. You can move an object. If I wanted to move a circle, I could say my circle is going to be at the position frame count, which is goes from 0 to infinity over time. Every time the draw loop goes to a new frame, it increments by 1, height divided by 2. And I could say noise of frame count for the diameter times 200 and restart. Okay, that's a little fast. It says multiplied by 0.01. Reload. I think it might be the generation of the hash. It takes a little while at the beginning. Yeah, there you go. So now we have animation. I'm not doing anything. It's just moving by itself, growing and shrinking. And it's gone. Goodbye. Bye. Yeah, that's that's it. Okay, we're almost. It's almost 7. So, or here in Berlin at least. So yeah, last questions. I haven't shown you how to get this out of here and mint it on FX Hash. But this is something you can find in the doc. When you're ready, you can download the sketch as a zip file and then upload it to FX Hash. There's on FX Hash also what's called a sandbox that is really recommended that you use to check if your piece actually works before you mint it. I think I might need to save it first if I want to test. Let's call it test. I'll put it in my draft. Submit. Are you aware of a G-code library for P5? I'm not. Honestly, if you're going into G-code, that means you want to do plotter stuff, possibly, or 3D printing, or whatever it is, controlling robots. For anything hardware like, I would honestly recommend that you use processing. It is more adapted for this, and it also is kind of easier to generate files because it has access to the file system without going through the browser. So you can just save your files directly without a dialog, without downloading something. I mean, I'm not only saying that because I'm the processing community lead fellow, but But processing is great, and you can use it on your machine. It works on every operating system. And yeah, it is faster for this kind of stuff, and you can also directly control hardware from it with a serial library. And yeah, it's probably a better choice for that. Yeah. Any other question? You're welcome, Franco. Piacere. See you, see you around the internet.
Raphael,
And
I have a question.
yes, go ahead.
Beauty here. So about this animation, here and you're doing on processing, it animates. What I tried, I download one of these examples from GitHub, and actually, it only changed the random thing when I refreshed. So I didn't see
Yeah.
the moving. So there's one difference there that I'm not catching.
Yeah, it is changing the randomness when you refresh because this is where it generates, in the index, it generates this random hash to simulate the different hashes that you would get through the minting. So each iteration gets its unique hash, but we don't have that here, so we just need to generate a random one. And that's why, but that's the way to do it normally. You refresh and you get a new iteration. If you want to see a lot of variations, what I usually like to use is called FX snapshot, which is this, and it is used to generate an arbitrary number of snapshots for projects. So it's really useful, and it's something like if you get into generative art and you want to do stuff for FX hash in particular, it's really recommended that you check the, I would say, like the shape almost of your parameter space. This is a whole topic, but a big part of the artistry of generative art, in the case of long form, what people call long form, which I don't really like that term, but for better or worse, it has cat code on. So yeah, sorry, I want to show you an example of a piece of mine to illustrate. Yeah, so here I have a bunch of snapshots from this piece I made for Proof of People. So if I look at an early one, you see I generated 100 variations, and some of them are almost completely dark, or I don't know if there's completely white here, no, but some of them are just like, one big dark one. That there's a little bit of color at the bottom. Would be a shame if somebody collected it expecting to have like a nice colorful output, but then they end up with a big black square. Not fun. So you want to generate a bunch of variation and check, and then change your code so that you can tweak it so that the variations look right. Here, I have some that are almost entirely white, and some which have colors that are a little bit too garish to my taste. Some people might like this. I found it didn't really fit the collection, so I kept tweaking, and then you can tweak for, like, in this case, I wanted to see variations over one specific palette. So I tweak my code so it would generate exclusively that palette, and use FX snapshot to generate all of this. And you can see also an interesting detail is that the file name has the hash in it. So if you want to go back and check this later, you can also do it. And this would be, the last iteration where I was satisfied with the results. So this is the feedback you need to tweak your generative system and the parameter space of your generative system, so that you're happy with most of the outputs. That's a question that Calo was asking on Twitter today, and everybody answered the same, which was kind of funny. Yeah, because it's true. It's like, how do you know when a generative art project is finished? And the answer to that is when you're happy with more than 80% of the outputs. You look at them and you're like, yeah, I like that. That's it. Bye, Boat.io. Yeah, all right, we're over time. So thank you so much. If you have questions, feel free to ask in the chat. I can stay for another minute, but then I need to go. And yeah, you're welcome. And I'll see you around. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at SableRaph. I'll put all of that in the chat. I also stream on Twitch and stuff. But that's it. Yeah, that was fun. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And have a lovely rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are. Bye, everyone.
Bye.